Let's look at the sentences from chapter 28. Auctor sapiens et diligens turpia vitet, et bona probet. First of all, I want you to understand the structure. There's two things that are happening. There's a vitet going on and a probet going on. And who is doing that? The auctor. The auctor, vitet and probets. Auctor, we know it's the subject, nominative singular masculine. Or the wise author, we'll put it there. Oh, not just wise, but wise and diligens, diligent. It's fine. He avoids, this is accusative, plural, neuter, substantive use of the adjective, and this is accusative, plural, neuter, also substantive use of the adjective. Now we need to determine what about analyzing the verbs. Vitet, it comes from vito, vitare, vitavi, vitatum, and it means to avoid. And it's a first conjugation verb. Notice the stem, A-R-E. If this were the present indicative, it would be vitat. Where we expect the A, we get the letter E, vitet, which is the sign of the subjunctive. So vitet is the third person singular present active subjunctive. And if you look up probet, you'll see it's the exact same thing too. So what we have is the jussive subjunctive. Let the wise and diligent author avoid turpia, shameful things, and probet, bona, and approve good things. It's very, very tricky to understand or get right off the bat that this is the subjunctive. And you kind of have to walk yourself through it. Or you have to be comfortable enough with the language to know, oh, vitat would be the present. This doesn't seem right. It's the subjunctive. The present subjunctive, not the present indicative. You would expect the present indicative, vitat. Something tells you that's not right. Vitet, that's a subjunctive. Let's look at the next one. Number 2. Itaque pro patria etiam maiora melioraque nunc faciamus. How many verbs are there? 1. What's the subject? We. And we is not emphasized in other parts of the sentence. First person plural. Present active. Is this indicative or subjunctive? Let's take a look. This is the facio facere. This is a third conjugation verb. Facere. Facio. I'll write it all out. Facere. Faci. Factum. It is a third conjugation with that ere in the second principal part. The indicative would be an I. However, here we have ia, which is the subjunctive. So again, it's training yourself. Wait a minute. That ia is something different. That ia is not the indicative. That ia is the subjunctive. So we have here the hortatory subjunctive. Let us do. Let us do what? Just like in the other sentence, this is accusative plural neuter. Accusative plural neuter. This is accusative plural neuter. And so, for our country, pro patria, even let us now do etiam maiora, even greater things, melioraque, and better things. That's your sentence. And so, for our country, now let us do even greater and better things. Number 3. Nepos tuus a mensa discedat, ne ista verba acerba audiat. Pay attention to this construction. We have a verb here, okay, and something that looks suspiciously like a noun at the very beginning, so that's our subject-verb combination, no problem. But what do we have here? A ne introducing a clause that has another verb. For translation purposes, I encourage you to translate these two, or at least treat them separately, because a clause is going to have its own subject and its own verb. Now, logically, it may be the same as the main verb, but I'm talking about grammatically. So, nepos tuus a mensa discedat. First of all, let's look at discedat. What is it? Third person, singular, present, active. Is it indicative or subjunctive? Where do you get that A in there. It comes in, well, you have to look at the verb, discato. I misspelled that terribly. Discato, discatore, discessi, discessurum. Ran out of room, apologies. Discessurum. This ERE is a sign of the third conjugation. In the present indicative, we expect the letter I. Here we get instead the letter A. That means this is the subjunctive. Let your son, nepos, leave the table. Depart from the table. Ne, ista verba acerba audiat. This is the third person singular. Present active, is this indicative or subjunctive? That IA is a sure sign of the subjunctive. So that he might not, this is a negative purpose clause, might not hear those bitter words. Ista modifies verba, acerba modifies verba. Let your grandson depart from the table so that, nay, or so that not, but we're going to put that not later on, so that he does not hear those harsh words. This is the audiat equals the verb in a negative purpose clause. Or purpose clause is fine. Purpose clause, this one happens to be negative. I prefer, I guess I should say, verb in a purpose clause. Negative or positive, it doesn't really change the analysis. You know what I mean? You throw in a not, you don't throw in a not. It's still a purpose clause. So the negative is not critical to your analysis. Number 4. Ne imperator superbus credat, se esse feliciorum quam virum humiliamum. Wow, a lot in this one. Ne imperator superbus credat. Now, how many verbs are there? We've only got one verb with an ending, credat. And hopefully by now that A, given the chapter we're in, you're recognizing, oh, okay, that's probably the subjunctive. And this other part here, it's got that infinitive. Got it. This is probably an indirect statement. I'm just using clues from the grammatical structure before I worry about translating it. And now that I've identified this as an indirect statement, I want to treat the two separately. This ne plus the subjunctive is negative jussive subjunctive. Now, I hear you saying, but wait a minute, this ne here was with a clause. That is correct. The difference in the prior sentence is that the ne introduced a clause. In other words, in the main part of the sentence, in number 3, we already have a verb. Discadat. Discadat is the verb for number 3. And then the ne has another verb. The ne introduces a second verb. That's how we know it's its own clause. This sentence does not have that structure at all. It has one verb, credat. And it's in the subjunctive mood. And we have a ne there, so that's the negative jussive subjunctive. Credat is third singular, present, active, subjunctive. Let not who? What's your subject? The emperor. What kind of emperor? The proud emperor. Let not the proud emperor believe that. Now we have an indirect statement. Accusative subject, infinitive verb. Let him not believe that he, because it refers to the subject in the main verb, in the main part of the sentence, say that he is happier. This is your comparative degree of the adjective, comparative, happier than the most humble man. This is the superlative degree of the adjective, used in comparison with that quam. Oh my goodness, a lot in this sentence, isn't there? Let's take it one at a time, one word at a time. Now that we've analyzed it, now that we know what's going on, okay? Let's take a step back and take the words. Let not the emperor, the proud emperor, believe that he is happier than the humblest man. Notice, we did a lot of jumping around, a lot of analysis before we got to the translation, okay? But when you get to the translation, just take the words as they come. Put the work in on the analysis, and then for the translation, let the words flow basically as they come. Notice the only distinction, the only difference, the only variation I used was in credat, the verb. All right, let's go to the next one. Number 5, quisque petit quam felicissimum et urbanissimum modam vitae. Petit, there's only one verb here, petit. Third singular present active. Is it indicative or subjunctive? Well, I tell you, you do not get that I in the subjunctive ever, because the endings for the subjunctive is the first conjugation is E, second conjugation EA, third IA, third IO, IA, fourth IA. In other words, if this were the subjunctive mood, we would have one of those letters before that ending, and we don't. This is a plain old indicative. This is your nominative singular masculine. Each man seeks quam felicissimum. This means the quam plus the superlative equals as blank, whatever the word is, as possible. So each man seeks a what? A measure of life. This is your genitive singular feminine. Quam felicissimum, as happy, and urbanissimum. How would we translate urbanissimum? Urbanissimum. As happy and as urbane. I mean, we just don't use urbane much in English. Let's take a look. Shh. Okay, elegant. Urbanus can mean elegant. So, as happy and elegant as possible. Refined. We might use refined. Number 6. Quidam delectationes et beneficia aliis praestant, ut beneficia similia recipiant. So, what do we have here? We have this and that. They do this. Whatever that is. I'm just finding the subject and verb. That's all I'm doing. Looking at the subject. I mean, the structure. And look here. We have an ut. Ut plus a verb that is highly suspicious because that is an IA. Sure sign of the subjunctive. That is probably a purpose clause. So that they may receive. This is third person. I'm getting in my head of myself, plural, but I'm just so excited I saw that subjunctive. I mean, I'm just using the clues. Using the clues, that's all I'm doing. Recipient, third person plural, present, active, subjunctive. Okay, I know, got ahead of myself. But you'll get to a point where you're comfortable with the structure. You'll see the structure of the sentences and certain things will call out to you. Ut plus that IA, I don't know what it means, I don't know what it says, but I know the structure, I know that's a purpose clause. Let's go to the first part. Certain delectationes, delights, that's fine. And what? And kindnesses, okay. Praestant, third person singular, present, active, active indicative. How do I know it's indicative? Praesto, praestare. Okay. Stare is first conjugation, and that praestare in the indicative we have an A, which is what we have here. If it were the subjunctive, we'd have the E. It'd be praestent, but we don't. So, certain, I'm going to change this as I'm looking at it. You know, and that just happens sometimes in Latin. You go through the sentence, you expect certain things. So we're going to go nominative, singular, masculine. I don't think certain modifies delectationes at all. You know why? Because that's feminine and certain is masculine. So in my initial analysis, my initial assumption, I assumed something without analyzing it, and that led me to an incorrect translation. That's what I try to warn you all about. You know, don't jump to assumptions. You want it to mean a certain thing, but if you haven't analyzed it and the grammar doesn't support it, this is what happens. Certain people offer delights and kindnesses to others. This is your accusative, plural, feminine. This is your accusative, plural, neuter. Aliis is your dative, plural. Could be masculine, could be feminine, just means to others. Doesn't matter whether it's men or women. Grammatically, it's the same, and in the sense of the sentence, it doesn't matter. So, certain people offer delights or kindnesses and delights and kindnesses to others. Ut, purpose clause, so that they may receive similar kindnesses. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I am giving you this, not because I want to be nice, but because maybe one day you'll return the favor. Quid pro quo is what this is. So, want to be sure you understand it grammatically. Certain people offer what? Delights and kindnesses to others. This is your indirect object, so that they may receive what? Kindnesses. What kind of kindnesses? Similar kindnesses. Number 7. Multimedici lucem solis fuisse primum remedium putant. Look at this. Putant. They think. And as we were going through the sentence, I saw, oh, wait a minute, what is this? This is the infinitive. That's surely a sign of an indirect statement. Haven't translated it at all. I just recognize putant. Now, what's the first word? Multi, and we do have a noun here, medici. This is nominative, plural, masculine. Multi modifies it. Many doctors think, putant, third person plural, present active infinitive. Indicative, excuse me, looking ahead, looking up above. Many doctors think that. And now we're going to see the accusative subject and the indirect statement that this accusative singular feminine, the genitive singular masculine, that the light of the sun was, comes from sum esse fue futurum, was the first cure. Many doctors think that the light of the sun was the first cure. Notice, I know jumping around a little bit in analyzing the sentence structure, that's one thing. When it comes time to translate, I encourage you to stick in as close to the same word order as you can. Because once you've identified the structure as you move around, then you know how to translate it as it falls into place. Many doctors think that the light of the sun was the first cure. Number 8. Imperium duci potentiore dabunt ut hostis acerimus avertat. Look what stands out right here. Ut. This ut, and it ends in a verb. I'm going to bet that's a subjunctive verb. So, let's not get into translation. Let's look at the structure. Dabunt is our verb in the main clause, the main part of the sentence. They will give. It's one of the first words we learn. I mean, on the one hand, I don't want to encourage you to jump into translating, but on the other hand, dare is one of the first words we learned, and if you can quickly recognize it, then go ahead and translate it. They will give. Okay? They will give what? Imperium. And if we're talking about giving, this is probably the indirect object right here with duci. That's correct. This is accusative singular neuter. This is duci dative singular masculine, and potentiore modifies it. They will give the power, the imperium, to the leader. What kind of leader? The more powerfuler, the more powerful leader. That's my main sentence. They will give power to the more powerful leader. To the more able, more capable, stronger, more capable, I think might be good. To the more capable, more able. That's really what it is. The abler leader. So the question is, how do we use that in English? More powerful, more capable leader. Ut, probably going to be so that. so that what? Avertat hostes. And what kind of hostes? The akeramos hostes. So that he might turn the very fierce enemy. Turn away, avertat. Avert, we get avert directly from that. So they will give power to the more able leader so that he might turn away the very harsh enemy. Let's take the time to confirm that avertat is the subjunctive. In first conjugation verbs, that is, verbs with the second principal part ends in an ARE, the sign before the ending of the indicative, the present indicative, is an A. In second conjugation verbs, verbs that have the second principal part with a long ERE, the sign is an E. Third, which is a short ERE, in the present tense, an I comes before the ending. In the third IO, also an I. And in the fourth, with second principal part ends in an IRE, also an I. These are all the indicative. What is the sign of the subjunctive? In the subjunctive, the sign is E, A, E, A, IA. In other words, for a first conjugation verb where the second principal part ends in an ARE, the indicative has an A, the subjunctive has an E. Second conjugation verbs, long ERE, indicative has an E, subjunctive has EA. Third, I, subjunctive has an IA. Third IO, just the A. Third IO, it has an IA, and the fourth has an IA. What do we have here? Averto, avertere. This is a short ERE, so this is a third conjugation verb, and the third conjugation verb has an I in the indicative and an A in the subjunctive. So yes, we have confirmed that this A in avertat is a sign of the subjunctive. Therefore, we can say emphatically this is a purpose clause. They will give power to the more able leader so that he might turn aside the very harsh enemy. Number 9. His verbis tristibus nuntiatis, pars hostium duos principes suos reliquit. 3 words ending here. These words at the beginning, ablative absolute, sure sign. With these words, with these sad words having been announced, part left. That's my sentence. And we know here that the only place you get the I is in the indicative. It's one of these. It doesn't even matter at this point because the I is not going to happen anywhere else. Could be the perfect tense, but it is the perfect tense. It is the perfect tense because, I'm so glad I thought to analyze it. Relinquo, relinquere. So we don't have relinquit, we have reliqui, relictum. So we have the third principal part. Think about that. Think about that. With that I ending, you have to be concerned about whether this is the present indicative, or you have to know your vocabulary. Is this built on the perfect stem? And in this particular case of the word, the I, this is the perfect stem. Part abandoned, left behind in the perfect tense. So this is a third singular present perfect active indicative. Part of the enemy, genitive, plural, masculine. What do? Part of the enemy left behind its 2 leaders. So with these very sad words, I don't know what's going on here. Let's face that. I don't know the circumstances of the sentence, but grammatically, with these 3 sad words having been announced, part of the enemy left behind its 2 leaders. Number 10, maiores putabant. Stop! Maiores putabant. What do we expect after a verb of thinking, saying, or telling? Thinking, saying, or showing? We expect an accusative subject and an infinitive verb, which is a hallmark of the indirect statement. And do we have it? Yes, habere, there it is. The older people thought that. Older people, ancestors, that's what this means. Maiores putabant. This BA is a sure sign of the imperfect, third person plural, imperfect, active, indicative. Our ancestors thought that the gods above had, because it took place at the same time as the thinking, possessed, held, had, whatever word you want to choose, whatever subtlety you want to include in it, just say had human bodies, had not just human bodies, but pulcherima, very beautiful human bodies, and very strong human bodies. This is accusative, plural, neuter. Okay, so this is accusative, plural, masculine. Its use in the sentence, accusative subject and indirect statement. Our ancestors thought that the gods above held bodies, human bodies, very beautiful and strong human bodies. You don't have to translate that 3 times. I'm just showing you how we build it up. Notice again, in analyzing the structure, it may appear that I went all over the place, but when it comes time to translate it, no. Just stick with the word order. You'll be fine. Number 11. Uxor pudica eus haec decem utilissima tum probavit. The wife, the modest wife, his modest wife. The wife, well, let's back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. I meant to do that. Showing what I want, I am discouraging you to do. Don't jump in translating it. Let's analyze the sentence. First, last, the wife approved. Okay, tested, approved. Either way. The modest, uxor pudica, his modest wife, what did she do? She approved these 10 very useful what? Utilissima things. We don't know what they are. This is accusative, plural, feminine, neuter, substantive use of the adjective, just call them things. These very useful things. I don't know what she's testing, but she approves of them and found them very useful. But grammatically, that's enough. His modest wife approved these 10 very useful things. All right, those are the Latin sentences from chapter 28. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.